Hey guys, and welcome to the Punchline Approach, Chapter 2. Today we are talking, hold on. Today we are talking all about unveiling so that we understand. That's what Chapter 2 is about. Who has their book? I don't have my book's behind me. Yay. All right. So we're going to do some takeaways. The first thing I want to know was, what was the thing that stood out for you in Chapter 2? That rhymes.
For me, it was the last paragraph, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was the very end of the chapter where it gives you this is the punchline of the chapter. It's like a super duper inspiring, every sentence is so inspiring and made me feel, oh yes, I get to go and make this happen and live up to my potential, which is our saying for the week, I guess. It just felt really, really good.
Can you read it to us, Susie?
You are perfect. You are enough. You are worthy. You are deserving of a fabulous life. You are a magnificent creation and the highest expression of love. Be that and allow the world to see it through your confident attitude and presence. Unveil the stories to reveal your gifts and show up as your best self. I got it highlighted.
Oh, that's funny. Anyone else highlighted it?
Pretty good.
Anyone else care to share what was their takeaway if it wasn't that one? Hi, Kim.
So my takeaway was the whole chapter, actually. I reread it this morning, and for my personal takeaway, it was like, oh my God, I've come so far since that first reading of that book. And I underlined almost the entire chapter. It's crazy. I was trying to find my little highlighted points to talk about today. I'm like, well, it's the whole chapter, you know? The unveiling for me, that discovering who I am, was the most profound part of the whole program. After coming into presence, I'm still unveiling and discovering, but like Mallory, the punchline, that last chapter, OMG. It's like, yes, we are worthy. You know, for me, it's like, I am worthy, I belong, I matter, I am seen, I am heard. Before this book, I would have never said those things. It's like, so that's my big takeaway, and I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited about your internet.
Yes, I'm excited about my internet today.
Even your access to yourself through this is really clear and profound.
Yes, it is. It's amazing.
Wow. Okay. How about, let's just get some feedback on, so there's two parts to this. It's the unveiling and understanding, but it's really the uncovering and discovering. So there's the conditioned part that we're trying to chip away, and then there's identifying the actual essence. So how about Chantel? You got any feedback on that, or anyone else? If you don't, just who has feedback on that part? Which one was more profound for you? The getting rid of what wasn't you, or the identifying what was you?
For me, identifying what was me was really hard, just because I had such strong beliefs about myself, and my beliefs in general from childhood on were so strong that as I was letting go of those, there came this point in time where I felt so confused. I didn't know what was going on because I wasn't living in those beliefs anymore, but I didn't know what to believe about myself. I wasn't quite to the point of believing all the positive yet, but I wasn't believing all the negative anymore. So there was this middle ground where I felt really lost for quite some time.
Does anybody know the number of the podcast that when we talked about that? It's the, is it 35 or something like that? It's called Transition of Transformation. There's a podcast on exactly this, because it was a pretty prominent part of the process for most of you guys. You remember it was the part where you have the seesaw and you're standing with 1 foot here and 1 foot here. And it's like, I'm not her, and hell, I'm not her. Who? It's like that in between. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and like this paragraph here, it says if you've been taught to minimize your value or be ashamed of things about yourself, you may find it challenging to acknowledge great things within you. And that's where I was. I have been taught all that, but I was dropping the negative about myself, but I hadn't gotten to the point of being able to accept or verbalize or feel what was positive about myself. I could hear it from other people and it still felt uncomfortable, like it wasn't really me that they were talking about.
Oh, God, it's so good. Yeah, because we can't see. I mean, and I can tell you you're beautiful and amazing and smart and powerful, like for years, but until you believe it, it changes nothing, right?
Right.
You can't see what I see. That's really good. Go ahead, Chantel. I saw you. Did you unmute?
For me, it was discovering who I am, like
Same.
what was me, because through life you always had to uphold a certain standard to respect the family name, especially down here. I mean, you get drunk and, oh Lord, that's the font nose, or everybody knows everybody. So it's being allowed to just drop all that and be who I am, be who is inside of me. If I don't want to smile or be happy, it's okay. If I just want to stay in my pajamas all day long, it's okay. I don't have to put a face full of makeup just to go to the store right down the road, you know. So I found that was a weight lifted off of me, just to discover who I am and have that permission, that
Yeah.
invitation to just let it all go.
So would you say it's the liberation from the conditioning,
Yeah.
identifying the liberation that made the difference?
Yeah.
So good. Anybody else? The floor is open, so just raise your hand and I'll go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, I think for the first, I don't know how long it took me to let go of the identity. I mean, when you're in therapy for many years and you're dealing with whatever happened to you as a kid, you get so identified with that. And then there's like thousands of books written all about your diagnosis, what's wrong with you, why you're broken, why you're messed up, why. So the shift of you're not broken, you're not messed up, you're not wounded is a pretty huge change of perspective. It's of invalidating all your victim identity. And you have to be willing, I had to be willing to let go of that. And when you've spent your whole life trying to fix it, and then you realize it's kind of like invalidating to say, oh, there was nothing to fix. Well, then what the hell have I been spending my life doing? So it's a real departure. It's letting go of everything you thought you knew. And I didn't know, like I've said this so many times, I didn't know. And then once you know, you know. So that's a huge shift. Like, you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You're experiencing disconnection from yourself and divine source. So how those years, I've always been religious and spiritual, and I've always been that way. I was just born that way. But my unconscious beliefs, until I unveiled that, and it took me a year of intense work. Some of these women can testify. It wasn't like I wasn't trying. I showed up. I was always early. I was on time. I think I only missed one meeting in a year. It wasn't like I wasn't paying attention, doing the homework. It was so deep within me for so long. It was like the very core root that I had to unveil. And it was hugely transformative. Like I'm not a victim. Like, really? Oh my God. Was stuck down there. So the unveiling, the unveiling, like you're not broken. That's a huge shift from the way the world and religion too. You're broken. You better come to Jesus. It's like, whoa, like Jesus would look at you and say, you're whole, you're not broken, but everything else tells you you are broken. So it's a different way to think and believe.
Yeah. And you hit on a good point here when you said like, no, like I've been like connected to source, like I was spiritual. I was doing all of the things, but what we don't identify, it's the inner child that's disconnected from source, not the, like you're logical, your mind, you're like, oh God, oh God, oh God. Yes. I'm journaling to God. I'm praying. I'm doing all of the things. But that's when we're doing the emotional processing technique, and we're doing that, the soul, like the fractated parts of us, bringing that back on board. That's where we get that connection. But you exactly right. You can't see what you can't see. So you can't see what was disconnected, because the disconnected was not the you that you related to. It was the you that was no longer on board. It was you that had like fragmented, or that had left, does that make sense? Like, it's so we can't wrap our brains around that. We can't wrap our minds around it, because we don't know that we eject it. We don't know that part of us is not there until it's in our awareness that it's not there. So I love that you're saying that, because it really is that you are disconnected from divine consciousness, but it's not necessarily that your logical mind is disconnected from it. It's just a part of your soul that was so hurt, so wounded, so separated, that it wasn't even, you're not even in touch with that part. And the ability to do this work and bring those pieces back, we're just constantly retrieving and retrieving. And then when she lands there, when she comes back there, there's just, there you are. All is well, right? That's where we can drop into that. But we can't feel safe when parts of us are missing.
I was just angry and pissed all the time. Not all the time, just when I felt threatened. Because how can you ever trust and surrender when deep down inside, when you were vulnerable, you got, destroyed. So that part of me needed to feel safe again. And it wasn't intellectual. I've read a million books and done a million things. It was emotional. And so, yeah, the you and the punchline approach is like the messiest letter for me, the unveil.
Anybody else? Thank you. Go ahead, Kim.
Hi. This chapter it spoke to me, resonated with me so deeply. I feel like I started the journey of unveiling 2.5 years ago. And I can't remember if I shared this before. I think I only shared it with you, Kim, but my journey started, I've had autoimmune for like almost 15 years. And I hit the wall like 2.5 years ago after one of my worst flare-ups ever, and sought out a counselor for the first time. I thought I can't go through more flare-ups like this or I'm going to die. And so I thought I was going to him for him to like help me know how to be the best sick person and like give me some tools to be like a happy sick person.
Yeah.
And in the very first session, he's like, nope, you're a well person. And I fought with him. You don't know how sick I get and all this stuff. But I remember at the end of the first session, he asked me, he's like, can I ask you a question? Do you love yourself? And I just cringed. I was like, I mean, I kind of like well Kim a little bit, because well Kim's like, social and a good mom and getting stuff done, but sick Kim, who's laying in bed on IV for 3 months, like, And so that was like the beginning of healing that schism within me and unveiling the things that, and I'm still kind of on that journey, unveiling the things that led me to being sick, Kim.
Yeah,
and
led you to believe that was you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I resonate with what you shared, Susan, because I've always been, since I was a little girl, like a deeply spiritual, naturally and deeply spiritual and religious person, and I still am. But I had such a deep disconnect within me.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I really actually had a deep disconnect with God too. So I've been on that journey healing all that. And it's so interesting going through your book because I've been going through that alone. Like I think I shared last time, I was led to mindfulness first, and so I did presence first. But then I had a lot of years before I got to chapter 2, unveiling, and I'm still on that chapter, but yeah, it's a process. And I guess that's one of my questions is this a lifelong process or is it a destination? Because I still feel like I'm going through it.
I believe it's a practice. I believe the punchline approach is a framework. It's the foundation for the how, and it's a practice. We're always in the PUN, 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 PUN. The problem is we live in a mindset intellectual world. And so we're told to go to the C and bypass the PUN. Just go do it. Just go get the thing, go do the thing, just think it, just believe it, just quit letting people shut you down. Just go. And the richest part of the human experience is in the PUN. You don't even give a squat about the rest of it because this is so rich. The relationships we've built in this community from this practice is so fulfilling and satisfying. It's like so rich. That's the best word I can say. Liberation is in the practice. The joy, the profound joy, the deepest well that we couldn't even imagine with the mind comes through the practice, through the process. It's an experiential journey, and these are the steps. And it was a matter of, I don't think I've arrived anywhere, but I definitely arrived out of the pits of hell. And when I looked over my shoulder and looked back, I said, I'll never go back. I remember the moment. I remember saying it. I remember thinking it. And then in contemplation, how did I get here? It was a contemplation to go back to all of the years as a parent, as a business owner, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter. How did I forgive my mother? How did I forgive my father? How did I forgive or whatever it was? It was like I just kept asking that how. And I asked consciousness how, because I was unconscious when I did it. I do believe, I think I was just surviving. And I wanted to thrive. My goal was, if I can figure out how to want to live, I had figured out how to live, figured out how to survive. I wanted to know how to want to live. I was looking at people who seemed happy. I was looking at people who, I was like, why? How does that make them so happy? What am I missing? And so I went on that really deep contemplation, and everything that wasn't fell away, and it was very painful. But that is where the liberation was. And for those who live in my area here, what I'm talking about. To break the power of the culture that we live in and the belief system that we live in is so strong. I'm telling you, I think the land is oppressed here. I think it's so deep, so deeply entrenched in the people, in the culture, in the surroundings, in everything, that I think to truly get to this place that you didn't actually take your life in one shot, or do it on a journey, right? However we decide to exit through, it's food, drink, drug, whatever it is, or if we just take our life, whatever. It's just, I think that's why it's so prominent here. I mean, we're almost a third of our population will die by suicide here. This is a big deal. Yesterday was a year that we lost a 30-year-old, and last week we lost a 20-year-old and a 32-year-old. And it's very, very real, and it's like we have people here that it was part of their story, or it was one of their people, their loved ones. And I think that that's what it's about, is they couldn't figure out, they didn't have the coping skills, they didn't have the life skills, they didn't have the tools, and that was part of my mission, is if ever I figure this shit out, I will teach it. I will go to my grave teaching it, because it was everything. It's like Susie. It's all I can think about is, how do I heal? How do I heal? How do I get rid of this? How do I get, and I think it's because we're 6'2s. I think it's because it is our journey. We are role models. It is our purpose here, and when we're looking at it from who we are, on the deepest level. So does that make sense? I think Did I answer that question? It's a process. That is
Yes,
a
that
practice.
helps. Yeah.
I think the punchline approach is a practice, just like meditation is a practice. Mindfulness is
Mhm.
practice. I think it's all a practice. From my experience, I arrived at the bliss and got bored. It's like, oh shit. Now what? Like what? What do I do now? How do I hold on to this? And like embrace even that. I discovered also that there's misery and there's boredom. Like boredom is bad. I have 15.2 in my, for those who know charts and stuff, but just like in who I am as my identity, 3 times my shadow is dull. So you can imagine me taking antidepressants, shutting off my emotional body, which is my power source, disconnecting my soul essence from my knowing, from my feeling. You can imagine how suicidal I was, how dull my life was, like how hard it was. And I did this in the midst of, I owned 2 businesses. My husband worked shift work and I had 5 children at home and felt alone and disconnected. I was so disconnected. And, even years ago, I sat in my living room. There was like 17 of us, my family, my kids, their spouses, and their kids. And I still felt alone. And I was like, whoa, hold on. Need to unpack this story because this is not true. So that's the depths of the strength of my mind and how strong this hold was, these beliefs were. And that's why I think I'm so powerful in this teaching, and my belief in it is so much that I was like, there's not much you can tell me that I won't be able to defend. Like, I just can't buy it. I just can't buy it anymore, Kayla says, I'm still learning to have fun with the you. The part about the you that's fun is it's like watching a theater in your own brain. You're like, whoa, that's an interesting thought. Like, my brain is so powerful. I forget sometimes that I can still change things. I can make a decision every day to be or do something different than I was yesterday. Yeah, it's so I guess entertaining to watch, to be aware, but the awareness has to come first. That's why we have the P. Because if you're not aware, the you is just you repeating the same story, right? That's what Susie was doing. I know. And so she was not open to knowing anything else. She was just visiting the same record, the same trenches over and over. That's what I was doing too. And maybe some others of you here. Susie says, I think we are working through the PUN as life presents us with experiences. Yeah. Joyce says, it's kind of like when you get a computer working and there's one part of it that isn't connected and we try everything until that part is plugged in. Then we're like, yes. All right. I feel like I talked a lot. Anybody else? Go ahead, Linda.
So this past weekend, I spent some time getting to unveil. So like every new situation, every new experience is an opportunity to unveil something, either again or for the first time. And this is something that I've had to work on previously, but it just kind of presented itself a little different. So we go to Rockwall to evacuate for the hurricane, and we're staying with people that we've never stayed with before. My son's girlfriend's parents offered to put us up in Rockwall, Texas. So we stayed there. I've met them a few times and super nice people, very generous, very overgiving, wouldn't let me touch a dish, wouldn't let me do anything. And I was like riddled with anxiety because all I could do is sit there. They wouldn't let me like help at all. They wanted to pay for everything. And it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm sitting here like I felt like a bum. I felt like I wasn't offering anything, and it was so hard for me to be able to receive. Like, I didn't even tell them it was my birthday weekend. My husband told them, and they went out and got me a cake and all this stuff, and I was like so embarrassed because like they're spending money on me and like they don't really even know me. But it was so hard to just receive that whole weekend. I felt very anxious, like to the point where I couldn't even breathe well. And like we went out one day and I was like, I'm just going to sit in the car by myself. And like, as soon as everybody was away and it was just me in the car, and I started thinking like, where is this anxiety coming from? And it just, I realized it's like I still can't receive. I'm still
Mm.
struggling to receive.
Yeah.
Like they were being generous and it was completely genuine, no ulterior motive. And I was struggling to receive their kindness and their generosity.
Even me saying I believe in you, or someone else saying I believe in you, I see you, I see your potential. You can't even receive that, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
What do you see in the exercise of, like, because if you can't receive and you can't see it in yourself, you guys know what the exercise is? What do you see in someone else that inspires you? What would that trait be or that quality be? What have you seen in someone else that you were inspired by?
Well, I see a lot of love and generosity, and that's one thing that really inspires me. The other thing is being willing to be successful so that you can give more to others. That's really inspiring to me. It's not a out of spite or doing it to show people up. It's like I want to succeed so that I can do more for other people. That's inspiring to me.
So let's just paint a picture. You don't have to say a person, but let's paint a picture of what that looks like when someone else, like, I usually, like at retreat, I'll use the example, like we see it in Brene Brown, or we see it in Oprah, or we see it in like, but what is the it that you see? That you're like, oh, I wish I was more of that. Is it courage? Is it confidence? Is it?
Um, I guess it would be the confidence to do everything they have to do. Like one thing I see a lot of, and it like really touches me, is all these people that have their own businesses that are dropping everything to show up in like Charles and Cameron to just donate their time and donate supplies and just be there because they had the courage to create their own business and do that with their abundance. They created a platform for themselves to where they have that ability to help
Yeah.
others.
So it's generosity again, that which is the
Yeah.
very first thing you said before I asked the question. But you notice how I'm even having to go around and ask her several different ways, even for her to even recognize it in someone else. Can y'all see that? Like this is so important because I would ask you even for yourself if this is something that you do. Are you able to articulate what it is in the person that inspires you? What is it? What is the trait that inspires you? For what she just said, it's giving freely, giving all. I want to give. I want to give more. Would you say that that's what you're feeling?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So now we're identifying that she's got a generous spirit that's being held captive by a belief. Right? Because we know that what we want to do, we can just go and do. She can just go and be generous. But if this is coming up, this is what that exercise is about. And you want to give more, why not you? That's the unveiling. Can you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
It's in deep. I'm not asking you to do it here. I'm asking you to explore it. So for those who are in the More Than Mindset group, we talked about, I think it was there, or maybe it was in my coaches group. We talked about that this week. We're talking about extra weight on the body, like not being able to get pounds off, like physical weight. Physical weight comes in a couple of forms. So let's do the unveiling through weight loss or through the body image journey. So we want to unveil so that we can understand, so that we can discover. So there's a part of us inside that has potential and possibility, right? We can all agree. So you all take a moment and see what it is in you. I want to help people in prison. I want to help the puppies. I want to, whatever it is. Linda's like, I want to give freely. I want to have the abundance so that I can give more. That's her. Okay. We'll just use her as an example. And then let's say that she feels limited and she can't do it to the capacity that she wants to. So and I'll take it between her and me because I can explain it better from this way. And so I have this, like, I want to give so much more than I give. And it's like, I need that like, give it to who? Give it to where, right? Like you have generosity, you want to give, well, who do we give it to? And then it's like, well, here's all that giving energy, all that generosity that doesn't have a place to land. And it creates this agitation. It creates this like, and so that's when like I eat. That's the buffer. Like it would feel better for this agitation to stop. Let me tame it. Let me tame this desire to give more. Let me tame it down. And what that happens, you can see metaphysically, the extra weight grounds the body like, oh, calm down. That energy's not safe. It's too much. You're too much. Who do you think you are? Can y'all see how it plays out? And so now the potential and the possibility is packed away in pounds. I don't make up these words, guys. This shit just comes out. It always is the same letter. Potential and possibility packed away in pounds. Mallory, Emily, that needs to be written down for the new program. Packed away in pounds, right? Packed away in oppression. That's how the metaphysical body works. Packed away in pain. I have all this that I want to give, that I want to share, that I want to explore. It is not safe to give it. What will they think of me? I'm not the doctor. I don't have a Jesus robe. I'm not qualified. Pack it away in pain. So that's how the pain body is activated. There's another P. I'll be darned. There's another P. So packed away in pain. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Susie.
So it feels like through everything you're saying, under all of that is unworthiness and lack of faith in ourselves. Because I mean, yeah, it's easy for me to look at Linda and think, because I know her, how generous she is, how amazingly generous and selfless and giving and all that stuff. And how do we help ourselves and each other to allow ourselves to know that we're worthy and to believe and to put ourselves out there? Like, what is that stops us? Even we do all this intellectual work of unveiling, there's something that, because we're not born feeling unworthy, we're born feeling amazing. Like, feed me, change my diaper. What happens? How do we get rid of that feeling of unworthiness and lack of faith in ourselves? Go.
I love this question. It's her inability to receive that's stopping her from receiving abundance, which is stopping her from giving to the capacity she wants to give.
Right, but the inability to receive comes from, I feel like it comes from unworthiness. If she felt
just a thought. Linda, why are you afraid to receive? Why are you afraid to collect bundles of money? What is that? What will that mean about you to your people, to your environment, to your family, to the people that, like, there's a limiting belief that it is unsafe to charge a lot of money, make a lot of money. Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money, and there was a lot of judgment to the wealthier people when I was growing up. So they're greedy, they're liars, they, anything for money. Like typically the wealthier people tended to be the heartless, soulless, moralless people, and that's not what I wanted to be.
Okay. So if she receives, her brain is telling her, the part of her brain, the defensive part of her brain, the party in the back, is telling her that if she receives more money, more abundance, she makes more money, that she will be judged, she will be not safe. That's 100% in a nutshell, everything that we're fighting against. It's limiting beliefs, it's judgment, it's conditioning. Because if I tell her right now, and I know Linda well enough to put her on the spot with this, but it's like, hey, you want to make multiple six figures this year, and that is on your goal, and it's on your refrigerator, you're going to get some shit about that. Right? Why are you so selfish? Why are you so greedy? Why you need to know that? Why is that your focus?
Absolutely. I remember when I came home from the first retreat and I was telling my husband, like, my goal is $1 million by this time. And he's like, why? Why do you even need all that money? And it's like, why not? Why not have that money? And I kind of got beaten down a little bit about like having the desire for more money because that makes me selfish or greedy. And
there it is.
I don't want it because I'm being selfish. I want it so that I can like do something positive with it. But in a lot of people's eyes, if you're collecting the money and have the nice house and the nice things, and
yes,
and that was one thing I saw this weekend. Like the house we were in was super nice, and it was just like it was very comfortable. And had they not been able to be in that position, we wouldn't have had the place to stay and been so comfortably set up. And that's from their success, them being able to,
Yeah.
achieve the success
And
level they're at.
then you add the extra layer because we're doing spiritual and emotional healing work. There's a whole nother layer to the why we should be ashamed about that. Right? So you can see the intensity. I had to break through this myself. I remember, like, I was so exactly where Linda's talking about right now. And my vision, like, I had to come up with something that was giving to people in order for you to make the money. In other words, I want to make this money so that I can build this place for women to come when they need to leave their husband and they don't have a place to go. Because I was into women empowerment, right? And getting them out of that oppressed state. And because they would come to exercise, they were feeling really good about themselves. They were doing like so much better. And then they'd get home and then he's jealous and then he starts giving them hell about it. And I was like, oh, and then it would like, they would quit because that was their environment, right? That's kind of the thing that would happen. And then I would get accused of being like the man hater or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm the woman lover. Like, we want you to love yourself. It's not about hating anybody. And it actually like makes them step up to be better because she stepped up to be better. And then everybody wins, but they couldn't see that. So I said like, oh, I want to make $1 million so I can build this women's retreat center. So, it was all about that. And then it was like, no, you know what? The more money I make, that's why my podcast is free. That's why this is free. That's why the book is free. That's why like I have the ability to do that. So it started with exactly that. Like I had to do it for the giving reason until I could own it. But I was for sure, it was unsafe. You know what my friends were telling me from school? Must be nice. You just spoil, girl. I was like, I fucking lived in a car while I was 8 months pregnant, didn't have a home, didn't have a family. Like what? Telling me like I'm privileged? No, I served my spot, boo. I served my spot. But I had to own that. No one was going to own it for me. They were just going to keep feeding it to me. You know why? It's comfortable at the bottom with the crabs. So what podcast is that, Mallory? Because the one about the in-between, she said was 38. I think she said it was 38.
48.
48. And so there's
Transition.
one about exactly this. So the crabs all hang out at the bottom of the crab pot and they're clawing each other and they're keeping each other's very comfortable there. And we trying to rise above, trying to be better. We want more. We want more. We get to the rim. And then guess what? We out there by ourselves and they're down here having their party. And we reach down, we go back, we try to get them. We try, come, it's so much better up here. Come, right? We have this thing going on. We have to find the law in between, almost like a spider hanging. You know how the spider comes down and goes back up? We got to find that space where we can be more and we can still love, compassion, empathy, going back and forth, back and forth. But when Susie asked the question and Linda just answered it, that right there is exactly it. If she felt safe, she would go and get more and do more so she can give more. But the unveiling is the part that's, why are you not safe? And she's like, my environment doesn't support it. So what would it mean if you did it anyway? What does your brain tell you will happen?
That I will be kind of left all alone. I'll have
Top of the crab
nobody.
pot.
Yeah.
Anybody else can relate to this?
Is that one the resistance to growth? Maybe
I don't know.
that one's 37.
37. Might be.
I know there's a religious aspect of it too, of like the more you make, the more you're supposed to give back to the church, So like if you have anything extra, it should be going back to the church. And well, don't get me wrong, I absolutely believe in supporting the church you attend. I don't think you should put yourself living paycheck to paycheck because everything you receive over what you require to live should be going to the church either. I don't think.
What if the church is the place that you serve the people? What if the church is the $1,500 a month I pay for my podcast that's free resources to feed people? Or my time or right? Does that make sense? Like what if, because if church is community and love and connection and teaching, like what if it's the church body? What if it's only perception, in other words? What if it's not a building? What if it's not, I'm just curious.
Right.
I'm just putting that out there because everything that or you think is conditioned. Everything. And there's some unsafety in that. That was a big thing for Mallory, right? When we started unpacking this, she looked one day and she said, then what is real and true? It's like, well, first of all, everything you believe is real and true. It's your perception. It's your personality. It's your world. And you can change it. And then that's the whoa. What you talking about, Willis?
I was just thinking about that yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. I was like, is what I'm doing like totally irresponsible? Like, am I just gonna ruin everything by doing what I'm doing, like the way I'm doing it, by not going out and looking for a different job and depending on making this work instead? And all those negative thoughts started coming in like right away, like thinking about like what my father-in-law would say, and what my mom would say and stuff like that. And I was like, no, wait, hold on. I don't believe those things that they believe. That might be true to them, but it's not true to me. And it was like, okay, let me just kind of reset, and what is it that I do believe, and what can I do? And still working on building up all of that belief to support what I believe is actually possible, rather than eliminating stuff.
We're talking corporate compared to entrepreneuric. It's so different. Joyce just said, I believe it was Louise Hay that said, tithe or give money to wherever your soul is being nurtured, or where you can nurture souls. Yeah, either way. So good. So Mallory, what I see in that when you're talking about that is, let's just talk about the difference between corporate or the homogenized system, or the way. So that's a way to contain people, right? Because they're dealing with millions. There's bulk. So it's like, there's got to be some rules and some containment. And then you look at entrepreneurship and free spirit and soul essence, and like, oh, I'm here as a divine being and consciousness is oozing through me. And it's two different worlds. Like, hey, tame that down. You better wrap it up, boo. You got that going on. I want you to look at the difference of, so you are a PT, right? You should be making really good money in the corporate world. And yet there's some unfairness in that role, right? Who gets the job? Who doesn't get the job? Who gets laid off? What's more important? Oh, an evacuee, or or whatever it is, right? How does that, like, it's out of your control. Like, even your essence and your gifts and your talents get oversighted according to, there is a man in charge dictating and deciding who can go to communion, who gets the hours, who gets the patients, right? That's where the corporate and the entrepreneuric system are different. Can everyone see that? Like, when we're in the independent and the dependent world, I'm not saying either one's wrong or right. One is like a Coke machine. Hey, we put dollars in, we get Cokes out. And one is like, we are creatively bringing something new into the world. We already have a system and it works. We need to keep it. I'm not saying either one are right or wrong. Which one aligns with you? Because here's like the medical world, and here's the healing myself world. Right? It's like, it's just a reflection. Kind of, that's what we're unpacking. That's what we're unveiling. So you can get to your truth. Do you know who you are as consciousness? Do you know who you are as soul essence? Outside of your head, outside of your name, your religion, your height, your career. I remember when they said, who are you? And I was like, I have 5 kids. I'm a mom. I'm like, no, who are you? I've been married for however many. No, who are you? Well, I own a business. No, who are you? I remember like trying to figure that out. And I'm in a support group right now for, there's like 5 of us in this little intimate group. And the question this week is, you gotta like say something you love about yourself every day. And it's like, oh, I'm a good mom. Oh, I'm a good teacher. Oh, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. But there's no like, I am good at me. And I'm like, I love hard and deep. Like, I am committed to healing. I'm like, it's so different watching someone who hasn't done this work compared to what's coming out. Can y'all all relate to that? Who are you as the limitless soul essence? That's what this chapter is about. Do you know? And that unpacking, that cracking open, that peeling away, like what Linda's talking about right now. It's uncomfortable, right? Because when we start pulling that, whatever it is, away, you all have a different energy. For some, it's tar. For some, it's paper. For some, it's air, right? We hold energy differently. When we pull that away and it's raw That's uncomfortable. Because those wounds will be exposed. I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid to be rejected. I'm afraid to be misunderstood. I'm afraid to be left out. I'm afraid to be called out. I'm getting kind of used to that one. I'm pretty sure it's a scar now and not a wound. It's getting easier. That was one of the most uncomfortable questions you ever asked me, Kim. I thought my face was going to melt off. Yeah, who are you outside of your title? Outside of the parents you were born to? Because those parents are just the vehicle that got you here. The same with your children. You just carried them through. How's that, Mallory?
Writing it down. I feel like I'm not there yet. Like I was just thinking, I need you to tell me some more of those things like you told me a month or two ago whenever I was fishing with Owen and you were telling me all these things about my chart and what you see, and I'm like, I need to hear that again. I need to like, I don't know. It's like I don't see me.
Does anybody see themselves? I think it's really hard to see us. I can't see me. I have to ask projectors to show me. It's like, hey, what do you see? And what she's talking about is like in the self-healing masters, the depths of the work that we're going to do is we're really identifying beyond what we even know. And so we're going into kind of like our charts and our placements and just for fun. It's not to say that, because there's nothing determining we can all agree there's a greater force outside of us, right? We can also agree that this is the vehicle that we get to travel in, and we get to have the experience according to the color, the height, the size, where we live at. Susie and I are both in LA. She's just in LA and I'm in Louisiana. Two totally different worlds. We're complete polar opposite of each other, right? And yet we're doing this work together in the most deep, meaningful way that we can both be honest when it's painful, when it's not, and like, hey, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't sound right. Yep, that's just how it is here. And that's just how it is here. And that's just like, to be able to explore that, guys, that is priceless. To have another human say, tell me more. Tell me why you think that way. Let's look at this. Let's explore. Maybe I'm not seeing. Y'all, there's nothing more fulfilling and satisfying than a human that's going to let you get into their deepest, darkest closets, and pull all that out. It's like, well, yeah, I don't trust men because that motherfucker got me pregnant and left me. Of course I don't trust men, right? Like we get to say, oh, isn't that interesting that you based all men on that one? Isn't that interesting? But we have the mirror to say that back. It takes boldness and courage to say that to someone when they're feeling something different. And especially when the world is saying it's unsafe. And Mallory, that's what you're hearing, is it's unsafe for you to hear these things. Just like when the church says it's unsafe to do yoga and meditation, because that's what for those who don't know the South, that is what our church says. Like mindfulness, meditation, and yoga are of the devil. It opens up your mind for the devil to plant his little demons. And it's very dangerous. It's a dangerous world. So, and I mean, I'm not just making this up. This is the real deal. And so it took a lot to become a yoga teacher in the South. It came, and it's kind of like yoga is wrong, sex is wrong, divorce is wrong, suicide is wrong, like all of the human experience, dead wrong. You should all be Christ-like. And we're like, we're Jesus-like. We're human. We didn't that's the teachings is, can we be fully human and forgiving and loving and compassionate? Can we love all people? If you haven't read The Universal Christ yet by Richard Rohr, it's a fabulous read, whether you are Christian or not. I've just realized, I know not everyone is, but I don't have, it doesn't matter to me. It's just a great read on the difference between the teachings and the parables and the biblical format, and the difference between Jesus and Christ, and how we can, how we have been eliminating people, and the church has been closing the door on people. If you were divorced, or if you haven't been to communion, and so, I mean, confession, or if you haven't been here, or you haven't been here, I'm like, they must be uprooted with all this corona thing. So many people going to hell now. That's the part that just didn't make sense. I'm not even going to say to my mind. It didn't make sense to my soul. It didn't make sense to the Jesus that I knew, or the Christ-like that I knew, or the Holy Spirit that I knew, who raised me when I was a child by myself and had no parents at home and I didn't know where to turn or where to go. And I was reading the Bible to try to figure out. That was my first self-help book, trying to figure out what to do. And got to go file my taxes. All right, Kayla. So that's where I go with the unveil chapter. I'm talking not just the scrape, but are we willing to go through the layers? Because once you come to that liberated soul essence, there's nothing there. That's where joy is. If you've never experienced blissful joy, it is there. It is in the very essence of who you are. Go ahead, Susie.
As you're talking about blissful joy, I'm remembering being really depressed. But I want to say that I think that depression is a way that your soul is telling you you're not being aligned with your true authentic self. Like, it's there to wake you up, not to kill you. Although it makes you want to die, and it sucks, and it's awful, and I don't enjoy it, and I didn't like it. It was terrible. But looking back, I think it was like my soul's way of saying, you're so much more than this. Wake up. Like, one time I wrote a really long letter to depression, and I said, you're really ruining my life. You are bumming me out. I hate you. And it said, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? And it said, I just want you to slow down, and I want you to notice, and I want you to get still. And I was like, you mean you're here to help me? And it was like, yeah. See how I get your attention? And I'm like, yeah, you got my attention, and I'm miserable. I hate you. But it really, and I wasn't depressed actually. After I wrote that really long letter to depression, it like got everything going, and it loosened it up, because I used to feel like it was this force and I couldn't beat it. But now looking back, and I haven't been depressed in a few years, thank God, because it really was awful. But I feel like I'm free of it now, because even though I have rough days and still have some chew toys that my brain likes to torture me with, I don't care. I'm still every day happy. Like, even when I'm not happy, I'm still not depressed like I was, because I'm being true to myself. I have this journey. I have you guys. I have this process. I have a way to work through it. And so I think the bliss, I feel lots of bliss lots of the time, because you're becoming who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said in the comments, I think it takes practice to let go of who you thought you were, especially if you're been around for a while, like I have. It's a lot of rehearsing your false self. So when you let go of that, and letting go of those beliefs that you held so tight, you held on to them to keep you safe.
That depression was just who you are. That depression was part of your like, the depression's got such a big stench, right? Because we're told you're basically going to have to live with it the rest of your life, right? That kind of thing. It's like, what?
Yeah, I
This
didn't
does
know
not
how to
feel
beat
good.
it. Yeah, I didn't know.
I think it's a thought error. I have a post in holding right now. It's in save as draft that I've been literally trying to type up since 6:30 this morning, but I've had to stop several times. That is exactly talking about this, that I believe it is a thought error, that the thought error is the world would be better without me. This will never end. I'm so sick and tired of this. I can't handle it anymore. I can't find an answer. There is no solution. Like, it's that. And that thought error is believed, and it is locked in with an emotion. And the emotion compels the action, eject. That's where I think suicide comes from. I don't think it is just a chemical release in the brain. I think the brain releases the chemical in the body. The belief is locked into that emotional scarring, that samskara. And it's like, I'm at the end. I've had it. I look around. There's actually no light in sight. So I'm out. I believe those souls know what they're doing and them being, because they wouldn't go if they weren't meant to go. And I believe it's to teach us. I believe they're part of this with us. I was telling Mallory this earlier today. Like, I believe I've had incidences in medicine. Like, I believe that they are part of this journey, and that's their soul's part. Like, it might sound kind of whatever, but that's my understanding as a survivor, that I've got many people that I know, and I know the depths of what they were going through. We were friends. It's like, I know the ins and outs. And what Linda just said makes sense too. She said, I was literally prayed out of church when I separated from my daughter's father while pregnant. I was literally prayed out of church, right? Because they're like, pray for me. And the praying for me is, this person is causing me pain. Could you pray to get rid of this? That's perception. That's perception. We need to control. We need to eject. We need to shut down. And I think depression does come. Depression is the shutdown. And what you did, the exercise you did, was beautiful. It's having that dialogue, both-sided dialogue, and that my journaling is very much like that too. It's that internal dialogue to change the internal dialogue. Like, you have to know what it is.
Well, I have tons of compassion and empathy for people who are to feel that, because I think if you can nip it in the bud with the presence, the presence, if you stay present and aware and do mindset work, you don't have to go down the rabbit hole. Like you say, what did you call it? Spiral up. Like, you can spiral up instead of go down to want to die depression. But I think after days and weeks of feeling that, the punchline approach, or the presence and the awareness and doing all this work, frees you of that. But I just want to say, like, for the record or whatever, once you're deep, dark in that depression, I don't judge anyone for taking medication or whatever they can do, because
even if it's their life,
I don't judge anyone for anything, because I know how painful it is. But once you can keep yourself present, I believe it happened for me. I'm not afraid of being depressed anymore, because I'm present. I'm aware. I have tools. But I didn't back then.
And you guys can agree or disagree with this. Maybe we can just talk on it for a minute. But I do believe my urgency in the work, when I get feisty, when I get out there, my urgency is to give people an experience, an imprint in their body of something new and different. Like if all of you who have worked with me privately, there's a sense of there's something inside of me that there's a sense of urgency that I stay and stay and stay, no matter how long it takes, right? Peggy and I have had days, it's like that sense of urgency is a call to experience of imprint. And there's always enough time. It's the craziest thing. There's no urgency. I don't feel any urgency in my body about the staying in it, the imprint process. So it's like you're printing a shirt and you have to hold the steam down long enough so the patch doesn't come up, right? That's the imprint, right? Or you're like imprinting the thing on the horse, or what do they call that when they, yeah, I can't see I can't lip sync, but you know what I'm talking about. That
branding.
That branding. We're branding this, that's the embodiment. That experiential process. That's why it's so hard to market the integrative coaching. It's like, I can't explain what's going to happen. I can just tell you just trust me and stay. Susie's like, you tell me a million times to trust you. I don't trust you.
Are you talking about those times where over the course of a year, we get on the phone for 2 hours and I melt in tears and I feel like I'm in a coma for the rest of the day? It just pops up. Because I remember when I was starting to coach people, I'm like, how do you do that? How do you know when to do that? How do you know what to say? And it just happens.
Yeah.
And you never fell apart with me or cried or felt sorry for me or reacted emotionally. You were always like this still, calm presence. And so all my shit and pain was able to just, bleh.
Yeah.
And then is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I'm basically holding you in loving safety as the branding is happening.
Branding. I don't like that word. Imprint.
I've never used branding before, but for suddenly today, I'm just thinking, when I'm thinking of putting the patch on the shirt,
like you say, you connect to our nervous system and then kind of all the trauma gets, some of that trauma gets released, and then the nervous system calms down.
Well,
So when
that's the emotional processing technique that I learned through my own experience of, being there and holding that space in order for that to move through. And then when it moves through, there's this sense of liberation, and that liberation is what we want to like embody. It's like staying there, staying there, staying. I think it comes from my experience with working with the cranial system and the body through like yoga and body work. Cause it feels like this, like there's something that's happening around and in it. And that's when you say, I feel like I had surgery. Like I'm so tired. I'm whipped, it's like, but I think it's because we're rewriting like the neural pathways and the energy system. Like I think the nervous system is like, we're restructuring it in present time. That experience will never be lost. It becomes the new imprint. Right. And then I have to be careful that you're not addicted to me always doing that with you. Right. Because it's like, I want more of that. I want more of that. I want more of it. Brain's like, that was pleasant. That was great. Could we do that again? And we're like, no. And for some people, it'll be years before they ever let me go there with them. It's fascinating from my side because I thought, oh, I'm just going to go in there, nip the bud, hold the space, do, I was ready just to rewrite the crops all the way through. And now I have so much admiration. If you've heard me talk about the little wounded bird, I'm like, if anyone allows me to go into session with them, it is just like, I am so protective of that little child or that little, I'm thinking of the little birds that we had this week, like so fragile. They didn't even have all their feathers. And it was like, so that it just feels good. It just, for me, for my system, it calms me down. Because it's like, yes, they're still. Let's just be here. It's very, very fragile. And I'm pretty masculine, tough, cursing like a sailor, right? But it nurtures and feeds that healer, that now I'm in Chiron return. I'm 6'2" off the root, and so that's the wounded healer. I'm in that phase. Like that is part of my makeup in general. And so I think when that wounded healer is activated, there's nothing going on around me. If any of you have been with me, that there's nothing happening outside. It's the deepest sense of presence that I crave, that I have to watch because I am addicted to. Like, I don't want to be out there in the real world. I want to be there. Like, that's like me going to heaven. It's like, I want to stay in that. And my work was to not always be on call, because the doctor who's always in ER, who's like, they need that. Well, that's very much like this. All right. We are over time by 3 minutes. Screening print on a t-shirt. All right. That is the you. This is the part Susie says so hard until you get to the C or to the N or to there. When you're in them, they all feel like the hardest thing ever. But it definitely, I don't know if you guys I'm thinking of when the day that the 42 transit was passing through, and it's called the punchline. And it's all about rewriting structures and systems. I lost my mind when I saw that because I didn't want to change. I didn't like the name of the book. And then I'm like, 2 years later, it's identified in the cosmos. So interesting. All right. Go read your next chapter. Let's do some navigating. You can pick up the conversation in the Facebook group. And for those who have not joined Self-Healing Masters yet, guys, you got to come on board. It's so good. It's going to be this work the whole entire time we're diving in. So I'll just put a plug in for that. All right.